What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from Mtg, and we're finally back. Got the lights on in Georgia after a few days. We're back with you guys, and I got some Ixalan spoilers. As a matter of fact, on Friday morning, all of the whole entire rest of the set was spoiled. It was like 100 cards, mostly limited stuff, which I'll cover in the pre-release guide. Today, I'm going to talk about 11 cards out of those over 100 cards that were spoiled today. The ones that I think are best and have some shadow of a chance, maybe, at constructed play. The reason that I put it in those terms is because I didn't really see anything from today that's like a slam dunk guaranteed we'll see standard play or any other format, but I did see a bunch of really interesting cards that I at least think have a chance and I think are worth talking about. So I'm not going to necessarily go in any order here except for color order, but I haven't like numbered this list or anything because again I'm not sure that any of these are super stellar, but a lot of them are really fun at least. So here are all my favorites from today. First thing I want to point out is Ritual of Rejuvenation. This is 3 mana, 2 and a white for an instant. You gain 4 life and you draw a card. The only reason I bring this up at all is because we have Renewed Faith in the format, and Renewed Faith actually sees some very small amount of play, occasionally. So is this better than Renewed Faith? I think Renewed Faith gives you more options, so there's that, but if I can gain more life than the cycle off of Renewed Faith and still draw the card, that might be worth the extra 1 mana, you know? I'm not saying that it's amazing because Renewed Faith already is not amazing, but we at least have a card that's comparable to it in Standard that if we would play Renewed Faith, maybe we play this instead. I'm not quite sure yet, but there's going to be like Turbo Fog decks and such that may want something like this. And yeah, there might really be a Turbo Fog deck. It's possible. Like Saffron Olive just went 5-0 the other day with a Turbo Fog deck in Standard. So it's like, it could happen. And if it is, then this card is at least a possibility. Here's Sheltering Light right here. It's just 1 white mana for an instant. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn, and you scry 1. There are a number of these cards today, you know, protect a creature for a cheap cost. Like Blue got Dive Down, which gives creature hexproof and a toughness boost. Not bad at all. And then, what is it? Verdant Rebirth, I think, that Green got, which actually looks pretty decent too, and specifically good against stuff like Hour of Devastation. So I think, though, that this might be the best just because it's the cheapest cost. I just like, you know, 1 mana combat tricks that make our creature survive almost no matter what, and the Scry is awesome. Reminds me of God's Willing, if anybody remembers that card from Theros Block. That was actually a really, really good card, at least similar enough to where the card is good. The card looks okay. I'm not, again, really sure that it's going to like break in any standard decks, but at such a cheap cost, I mean, this is not quite Blossoming Defense, but it's almost Blossoming Defense, right? A little. We're into the blue cards now. Here's Depths of Desire right here. It's 3 mana, 2 and a blue for an instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand, and then you create a treasure token. Okay, so 3 mana might seem a little bit steep, especially in a format with Unsummon. just way better as far as the mana cost. But getting a treasure token might be just relevant enough for some decks, you know. Puts a permanent on the battlefield for what it's worth. Some decks might care about that. And it specifically puts an artifact on the battlefield. So decks that want to run Spire of Industry, which is, I think, going to be a really important land still in the next standard. It really helps them out, you know, decks that want to do improvised stuff, if there are those decks. And this really helps out with that too. And gets a permanent off the battlefield at tempo. That's not the worst card ever at instant speed. So I kind of like some things about it. I like that it's kind of a 2 mana spell. You know, you pay 3 and then you get the redemption in the mail. It's not bad. So and it fixes your mana. I don't know, man. It ramps you too. Like, it's tempo and ramp. So that can't be, you know, just, you know, the wave of the hand dismissed. You know, you get tempo on 2 sides here with this card at instant speed. So I actually don't think this card is horrible. I'm not sure, again, that any of these will really see standard play, but I think this might possibly have a shot in exactly the right deck. Here's Shipwreck Looter right here. It's 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 human pirate with Raid. When Shipwreck Looter enters the battlefield, if you attacked with a creature this turn, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So I actually kind of really like this. Like, it's really easy to get the ETB trigger, even on turn 2. I mean, it's not too hard to play a 1-drop, right? And it's sort of comparable to Champion of Wits. It's cheaper than Champion of Wits. It doesn't draw you 2 or discard 2 or whatever, but just getting 1 loot on an ETB trigger on such a cheap creature with 2 power is, that's a little bit pushed. I don't think that it's as good as like the other 2-drop pirates that we've seen. I think that there's a lot of competition among 2-drop pirates. But this thing might almost make the cut. I don't think that ultimately it will, but it's still worth bringing this card up. I mean, a really cheap creature that loots on ETBs, and it's not really hard at all to get it on turn 2, but it's still fine on turn like 4 or 5 alongside something else, or leave mana up to counter a spell. So I actually don't think this is bad, like, at all. Again, whether it sees play, but as far as just like evaluating a Magic card in a vacuum, it's not a bad Magic card. We're in the black cards now. Here's Costly Plunder right here. It's 2 mana, 1 and a black for an instant. As an additional cost to cast it, you sacrifice an artifact or a creature, and then you draw 2 cards. So this is just a better Altar's Reap, which didn't see any play or anything, but at least a good card. Like, it kind of reminds me of Perilous Research a little bit. I love the instant speed on it, so maybe, just maybe, the fact that Altar's Reap got a much, much better now might mean that it could see some play in Standard, you know? Like, I kind of like the idea of this, and it shouldn't be too hard to turn the downside into an advantage here, you know? Just drawing 2 is very good at 2 mana. That is really good, and having a large range of things to sacrifice now on a spell like this is great. Again, instant speed is unbelievable. We got treasure tokens floating around we can sack pretty easily, so I like a lot about this card. Again, I don't really see a fit for it in Standard, but it's a powerful Magic card that if there is a house for it, it will make it a home. Black actually got like all the strictly better versions of old cards. Here's Heartless Pillage right here. It's 3 mana, 2 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent discards 2 cards, and it's got Raid. If you attack with a creature this turn, create a colorless treasure artifact token. Alright, so this is strictly better Mind Rot, which is welcome, as far as I'm concerned. Mind Rot's known as a good card in limited formats, but this isn't quite a limited video. Again, I think this could see some constructed playability. I wouldn't count on it at the end of the day, but still, better Mind Rot that is essentially a 2 mana spell. If you attack with a guy, it's great. And again, treasure tokens are good for reasons other than just like ramp and mana fixing. Those are good enough reasons. Those are really good reasons. But at the same time, like, treasure tokens are artifacts for Spire of Industry and other things that care about artifacts. Just a permanent on the battlefield matters sometimes. So I am a fan of this. I'm not sure that it makes the cut in the sideboard, you know, ahead of other, you know, options. But at the same time, I mean, strictly better, splashable Mind Rot that fixes your mana and ramps you. Yeah, what do you not like about that? I'm just kind of excited the card exists. But here's my favorite, strictly better version of an old black card. Here's March of the Drowned right here. It's 1 black mana for a sorcery, and it's modal. You choose 1. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Or return 2 target pirate cards from your graveyard to your hand. So again, strictly better Raise Dead, which is sort of an iconic card in some ways. And you can just use it as a Raise Dead, or you can get card advantage out of it. Not card filtering, not card selection, straight up card advantage. For 1 mana, that's really good. Like, out of all the cards that I've talked about so far, I think this might be the closest to possible Standard play, you know? Just 1 mana for card advantage is insane, especially when it's, you know, 2 things that you cared about earlier in the game and your opponent was able to remove. It's going to get you a long way towards recovering or just turning the corner, you know, just like turning the tide. When you're behind, this is fan-freaking-tastic. So, like, card's not incredible when you're ahead or anything, but when you're behind, the card is straight-up card advantage for 1 mana. That's noteworthy at the very least, and I could see a 1 or 2 of these in the sideboard, or even maybe just a 1 of in the main deck of a Pirates deck. You know, you're running 24 Pirates, it's not going to be hard at all to get card advantage out of this, and still have a bunch of mana left over on the turn you play it to do other stuff, like maybe play the Pirates you just got out of your graveyard. I just think there's a lot to really, really actually like about this card. It's going to be a lot better, I think, than people believe it is at first glance. It's probably fairly easy to look over this card. And notice, I have to at least bring this up, that like creatures with Changeling and stuff in Modern, one mana to bring a couple of Changeling dudes back from your graveyard, it's at least worth noting. Don't think it's going to happen, but it's worth noting. In Standard, though, I think this card could actually have some legs. The last black card, there's a lot of those today, is Seeker's Squire. It's 2 mana, 1 and a black for a human scout. It's a 1/2. And when it enters the battlefield, it explores. Now, the only reason I'm sort of excited about this, actually, there's more than one reason, now that I think about it, but one of the reasons I'm excited about this card is because the Explore deck just got a little bit better. The Explore deck is a very, very budget deck from what it's looking like right now, and it needed another good 2-drop to help fill that curve out a little bit, and this is at least decent. You know, it's a 2 mana 2/3 sometimes, or I think more desirably, it sort of draws you a card sometimes, at which point it's a kind of a better Elvish Visionary in some ways. You know, like, it's an Elvish Visionary with an extra point of toughness, so it's a little better against Walking Ballista and stuff, and it still essentially draws you a card. So I actually think for 2 mana, that's a pretty good creature with relevant creature type too. So I think that this is another card that's just better than it looks at first, especially if you put it in the context of Elvis Visionary. It doesn't just draw you any old card, but it sometimes is a 2-drop creature on, it's on a body that sort of draws you a card. I think that's at least worth pointing out. I don't think there are a whole lot of cards from today that are just like maybe possibly standard playable, but this is at least one of them, if only because we're going to have to make the Budget Explorer deck at some point, and this probably goes in. Now, there's only one red card I want to talk about today, but it is a doozy, man. This is Fiery Cannonade. It's 3 mana, 2 and a red for an instant. Fiery Cannonade deals 2 damage to each non-pirate creature. Once you get over how ridiculous that text is, kind of, this card actually looks really good out of the sideboard for Grixis Pirates or Black-Red Pirates. Really good, actually, against other aggro decks. And Raminap Red looks like it's still going to be a presence. There's going to be other aggro decks that are like green-black and stuff, too. This just looks great, even as early as turn 3 sometimes, but you could pull this off turn 4 or 5. And then play another pirate and just really start shutting them out. Just the ability to take out all their 1 and 2 toughness guys on turn 3, 4, 5, whatever, is going to be a huge blowout for you, because you're probably going to have at least 3, 4 pirates by the time you play this. If you play it on turn 3, you'll have like 2 pirates. But if you play it on turn 4 or 5, you'll have a board relatively full of pirates, and you'll blow away most of their guys with this. I mean, Pyroclasm that costs an extra point, an extra mana, but doesn't hit your guys, it seems good to me and at least worth trying in sideboards. Don't sleep on this, man. This looks like a fantastic sideboard card. Here's the green stuff. Here's Blossom Dryad. It's 3 mana, 2 and a green for a Dryad. It's a 2/2, and you can tap it to untap target land. So this looks fairly unassuming at first, and I didn't really think about stuff. The first time I looked at it, I was like, well, it's an Arbor elf, and it's not great. Like, the more you think about it, this can untap the new Gia's Cradle. That's probably relevant enough to at least bring the card up in and of itself. And it can untap all the new legendary lands that we've just seen, and that could be relevant too. But especially Cradle, man. Like, being able to untap that Cradle could be insane freaking value. So you got to at least point that out. This card could be relevant if for no other reason than that. Here's Prying Blade right here. It'll finish off the cards for today. It's just 1 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token. You can equip this for 2. Now, I think there's a lot of things to like about this card, actually. Again, improvised decks, they're looking for 1 mana artifacts. I think Sentinel Totem is a really good 1 mana artifact for those decks. But I think that this is pretty close too, Like, we've got stuff like Bomat Courier, we've got, I guess, Prism Array. There's a few things to look at, Hope of Girapur. But I think this is still relatively high on the list, considering all the value that you can get out of this in the course of a game, especially on an unblockable creature, or if you have a key to the city or something like that. This card could be really good, It'll pay for itself and its equip cost in a few turns, but once it's done that, I mean, it's ended up kind of ramping you an awful lot. The initial cost to play it and equip it is a bit high, making it a little slow and clunky looking, but honestly, there's so much value in a long game out of a card like this that I don't think that it's necessarily bad. I think it's worth taking a look at, especially in decks that want to play artifacts. And I've already said this in this video, but I think Spire of Industry is going to be a pretty important card in the upcoming standard. So, 1 mana artifacts are very important for decks that want to run Spire of Industry. And decks that want to run Spire of Industry obviously want to fix their mana, and this helps do that too. So I just don't think that this card is bad. And I note, by the way, that it's common. So even if it's not good in standard, it could see some pauper play because this card does so much for a common. That's all I've got for today. I'm sure there's some stuff I missed because, again, like over 100 cards were spoiled. So I'm sure you have your favorites that I may not have touched on today. Let me know about those in the comments. I'll be able to tell you how I feel about them. And I'm just interested in how you feel. Not only about the stuff I picked, but about the stuff I may have missed. I'm going to bring this up until the end of time at this point. But when they did the massive Friday dump of all the rest of the cards in Aether Revolt, I think it was. Now I can't remember, but it's Aether Revolt. Yes, it was. I missed Felidar Guardian. Everybody's like, you understand that this is going to rule standard forever. And I was like, holy crap, I missed that. So I may have missed something crazy today. So please be sure to alert me if I did so down there in the comments section. You can also like the video if you enjoyed the video. And it's good to be back. Let me just say that, man. Like, I haven't really recorded in like a week. I did a video from my hotel room where I wasn't able to do like edits or really any jokes or anything like that. So I missed doing this. I missed you guys, and it's really, really good to be back. I'm happy about that. So like the video if you like the video, share the video if you want to share the video, do all the other YouTube stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev, or you can kick us $1 on Patreon at SBMTG on Patreon. It's patreon.com/SBMTG. So in any case, I think that's all I've got to say for now, but Deck Techs are incoming. Not only is the pre-release guide going to be, I think, the first thing I'm going to try to hop to in the upcoming week, but very, very soon after that, Deck Techs. And I think I've mentioned this a couple times before, but I should tell you real quick, if you become a Patreon, or a patron, even for just $1, you get to pick the order of the first 5 decks, or at least you get to help vote on that. So if you haven't become a patron yet, just kick me $1 and you'll help pick the order that these decks come in, which is kind of, sort of important, honestly. So do that if you haven't yet, and I'll see you cats later. I think I'm done talking for now. I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. This video is brought to you in part by TCGplayer.com, a sponsor where you can already get pre-orders on almost all of these Ixalan singles that have been previewed so far. Like, Walk the Plank is an uncommon that a lot of people are putting some faith in right now. It's at about 85 cents, anywhere between 85 and $1, and that might be a steal if the card ends up replacing Grasp of Darkness. We could see it go up to $1.50 or maybe even more. So you might want to go ahead and get your copies because a lot of people are talking about how good Walk the Plank is going to be in the upcoming standard. Another uncommon that I think is really worth trying to pre-order right now is Unclaimed Territory, which is sitting at about $2.25, which I think if this thing gets to Ether Hub levels and goes to like $3 or $3.50 at its peak, then it's going to be worth getting them right now. And this card is going to be very important in the upcoming standard. A lot of tribal themes, and they all want to play 4 of's Unclaimed Territory. So go ahead and get your copies if you haven't gotten them yet, because I could definitely see them being one of the cards that ends up going up once the set gets opened. But anyway, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check out TCG Player for yourself and shop for yourself. You don't need my fat head telling you what to do. In any case, I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, y'all.